get started into our last section here. Right, so the answer to our question here, a couple of you keyed in, when we had the past one, we put the actual number of tornadoes up there. So Texas was the highest, but Georgia had a pretty high number, especially for the year for Georgia. And indeed, they had the highest number of fatalities. They had 16 in that year. And if you look at part of the reason, these are the actual statistics that came out. You see the number of deaths here in Georgia. Yeah. Look at the time that this occurred, 02:30 at night. So you had a tornado, and it happened to be an EF3, I believe, that came through in the middle of the night. So not a good situation for anybody on the ground when that type of thing occurs. So David, really? Here we are.
Yes.
Okay, so our last segment is always a flight scenario. So we actually kind of go in detail about planning a flight between point A and point B, looking at all the weather, what kind of decisions, etc. So kind of a fun day to do it. Yesterday was a pretty dynamic weather day. So I got to sit around and look for a reasonable thing. So I decided we're going from Centennial down to El Paso, Texas. We're going to do it in the Mooney Acclaim that you see down on the bottom here. We're going to plan it IFR. We want to avoid all thunderstorms, and we can handle light to moderate icing and turbulence. And we planned to depart at 1800 Z yesterday. So here's our kind of planned or proposed route of flight. So you can see Centennial down here through Pueblo, kind of on the east side of the Rockies here, and then down into El Paso. You can see at 10,000 feet. We planned this at 11,000. These are the wind barbs at 10,000 feet. So you notice we've got a pretty significant headwind as we head south. So again, I always like to start looking at the upper level pattern and work my way down to the surface, because to me the upper level pattern gives us a good clue what's going to be happening at the surface. So yesterday, this upper low that's causing our lovely weather today was based in south central Utah. This is at 300 millibars, and notice we have a closed circulation at 30,000 feet. That's the indication that this is a fairly intense upper level low when you have a closed circulation that high up. Out ahead of it, we have this ridge through the central part of the country, and then another trough off the east coast, and a ridge back over the west coast. So we go down to 500 millibars, and that thing's still centered here, kind of over the Arizona-Utah border. You can see pretty strong southerly flow into Colorado that extends here down into New Mexico as well. So we're on the kind of front side of that upper low. 700 millibars, when a system is kind of, the circulation is in the same area, different levels of the atmosphere, we call that a vertically stacked system. It's an indication of a pretty mature system when you have vertical stack. A lot of times, as we've seen, the transition will be the upper level higher aloft will be farther to the west. You get to the surface, everything's out to the east. In this case, everything's just kind of stacked right up in the column above. In 850 millibars, very similar kind of situation. And finally, down to the surface, we have a low in kind of the same area as all that upper level stuff, and we have this frontal boundary here with a lot of southerly flow out ahead of it, and then northerly flow behind this surface low in front. Here's our weather depiction, graphical METARs. So notice we have some IMC here, but in general, a lot of VFR, or the light blue colors there. But also notice the wind direction, pretty strong winds from the southeast on one side and southwest. So there's a front somewhere in there, isn't there? Yeah, that's a pretty good definition of a front there. And we look at it on infrared satellite radar. Precip starting to move into western Colorado. Here, the upper level low is right in here. So this is that band out ahead of it that's slowly kind of moving to the east. Kind of a blown up picture. Here's our precip, and this is at 15Z. So into the mountains here, we got some that's actually out on eastern Colorado. The blue would be indication of potential snow surface. And notice with that front, this band is coming right down through here, right around Albuquerque is where that front comes down through. Invisible gives you a real good picture of where that is. So the upper level circulation's right in here with that front. And right here, we call that a dry slot. So that's why yesterday, out ahead of this system, there wasn't a lot of precip here along the Front Range. We were in this kind of dry slot right here where all the precip was back in the mountains until late yesterday evening into last night is when that band actually moved over. And now we're in the wraparound. So this is a blow up of where that front is. Sure enough, you can see, right through here, look at this. You got southwest winds and southeast. So that front, right in between those stations. Pretty classical depiction of a front. And here's our kind of blown up weather depiction. So now it's got a little bit IMC due to blowing dust down in Alamosa. We've got some precip down here, some in the mountains. When we get down to El Paso, winds are southerly at El Paso. You go over to Deming and Truth or Consequence is strong west. So that would be an indication that front is indeed between El Paso and those two stations. Very pretty map from an AirMet perspective. So if you look at the legend down here, we got high-level turbulence AirMets and low-level turbulence AirMets. We got icing AirMets. We got IMC AirMets. We got a lot of stuff going on. So if we blow this up, here's our turbulence AirMets. So again, the lower level ones are here. This one right here is a low-level wind shear, the darker color. But we have turbulence, high turbulence, as well as low turbulence. So it's a pretty turbulent day due to those strong winds. And anytime you have an upper level system, that tends to cause a lot of instability in the atmosphere. This is our icing AirMets. So again, we're going from 22,000 down to 12 to 7. That means that's going down to the freezing level. Freezing level is varying between 12,000 and 7,000 feet in that area. In this area over here, we're from 18 down to 10,000 or 7,000. And our IFR, we got some IFR here over kind of central western part of Colorado with that precip coming in. Mountain obscurations as well, makes sense. And we even got a convective segment out over eastern Colorado, and we actually have a turbulent segment that's in effect here. So what does a turbulent segment versus an AirMet mean? Anybody? So AirMets are put out for moderate conditions of turbulence and icing. A segment is for severe conditions of turbulence and icing. So what this segment is telling us, we have potential severe turbulence in that region. And it's close to our route of flight. Yes?
What is
I'm sorry?
What is severe versus...
Yeah, so right now, that's a qualitative assessment. We're going to a system of EDR where it's a little more quantitative. But right now, severe turbulence means that you have potential loss of control of the aircraft is the key ingredient here. Moderate turbulence is usually telling you it's going to be bumpy, you're going to get knocked around, but you're probably not going to lose control of the aircraft.
They haven't quantified any of that yet?
They are. Actually, we're going to an EDR-based system, which I'll show you in some of the plots coming up that makes it a little bit better to make that assertion.
Mike, is it based on the type of aircraft or?
EDR is, yes. Right now it's not. And that's part of the problem, is right now it's a very subjective assessment of turbulence in our light, moderate, severe, but we're moving to a system, we'll show you on the graphs here, of EDR, eddy dissipation rate, that's much more quantitative based on the type of aircraft that you're flying.
There's some pilot reports somewhere on there.
Yeah, so indeed we have some PIREPs. These are at 15Z. So the orange are for moderate turbulence. This one's light, green is light. And then we also have some icing reports of light icing, 20,000 feet, 21,000, etc. And we got moderate turbulence down at 27. So not as many as you may expect on this type of day, but then again, not everybody reports what they're experiencing. So we have to take it with a little grain of salt. So this is our icing at our flight level, proposed flight level, 11,000 feet. So a little bit of icing, looks like down near the Colorado-New Mexico border. We have the potential for some icing at our flight level. This is a Jepson picture of that same, and again, we're looking at potential for some icing down here along that Colorado, kind of northern New Mexico area. On the turbulence scale, this is our turbulence at 11,000, and when I mentioned EDR, notice the scale down at the bottom here. It actually labels EDR. When I went into this tool, I had to select the type of aircraft I was flying. So you have to put in either light aircraft, a medium aircraft, or a heavy aircraft. So I put in a light aircraft for our Mooney, and this is now the EDR scale for light, moderate, severe for my light aircraft. So notice when we go yellow, we're mostly in this moderate range. When we get into the darker shades, we're approaching moderate to severe. And that's at 11,000 feet. Here's another look. This is turbulence between 1,000 and 15,000 at 13Z Friday. And notice quite a bit of, we're in the light to moderate and moderate to severe range. You know, our flight's taking us out of Denver down here to the east of Santa Fe and Albuquerque before we head into El Paso. So we're in this region of some moderate to potentially severe turbulence. So, always like to look at our soundings at the location we're taking off from and flying to. Yesterday at Denver, this was the sounding. Stability-wise, we're pretty stable. You know, up there at 9. Notice not a whole lot of clouds in the column there, but also notice the winds. Pretty strong southerly winds here, all the way up to 50, 60 knots, up around 18,000 feet. We go down to El Paso, and again, not a lot of clouds to worry about. Stability-wise, pretty stable, but again, look at the winds. Southerly winds at the surface ahead of that front, and they turn southwesterly higher up aloft. So we look at our METARs. This is at 15Z. We're planning departure at 18Z. So the last METAR at Centennial, 190 at 13, gust 25. Anybody, I mean, does that worry anybody taking off here at Centennial? Yeah, some wind, but you're on the runway, you're on the north-south runway, so pretty much a headwind as you're taking off. Gusting to 25, yeah, that can give you some bumps as you're climbing out. Down at El Paso, we notice 180 at 11. So we got southerly winds ahead of that front, temperature of 20, dew point 9. Yeah, not too bad. But what would we expect as that front goes through El Paso?
Shift.
Yeah, winds are going to shift, aren't they? Probably increase. So, we have initial data. What are your concerns at this point?
Icing and turbulence.
Yeah, we got potential for icing, potential for turbulence. Yeah, could be pretty bad. So, again, now your passengers start coming into play. Am I comfortable with the people I have in my airplane? How many barf bags am I going to need? Okay, so our convective outlook. We had potential for general thunderstorms and a marginal to a slight risk of severe storms here, eastern New Mexico, West Texas border region. So our flight's kind of going down through here, so we're mostly on the west side of that, but we're certainly in the area of potential general thunderstorms. So this is our precipitation forecast yesterday. We're departing at 18Z. The flight's about a little over a 3-hour flight. So we're going to get in a little after 21Z. So this is a 6-hour accumulation of precip between 18 and 0Z. So notice here in Colorado, here's Denver, here's Centennial, about right there. They're saying, hey, you were going to stay mostly out of precip until evening, which turned out to be correct. But notice we also have some potential precip down over this region, and then pretty dry through El Paso. This is our HER forecast. So we're looking at reflectivity forecast right at our departure. Here we are, here's Denver, Centennial's there. So at 18Z it looked clear. We got potential for some precip though down in this region near the Colorado-New Mexico border. Some of these bands here may come into play on our actual flight. Then obviously pretty dry down in El Paso. So 19Z, 1 hour into our flight, we're probably down somewhere south of Pueblo, an hour into our flight, close to the New Mexico border. Again, we got some of this precip we're going to have to be a little concerned with. Mountainous region down there as well. 20Z, that stuff's all kind of starting to move out to the east there and intensifying here out over eastern, northeast New Mexico. But by this time, we're probably down in here, so we're doing okay. And then close to our arrival, yeah, this stuff continues to intensify out here because that's where they had that marginal risk of severe weather. So that's kind of what the forecasters at Storm Prediction Center were latching onto. And 22Z. And notice by 22Z, starting to come into the metro area as well. So we're getting out at a good time. All right, our flight conditions from an IMC perspective, 18Z, not looking too bad. We got this over the mountains, a little bit down where that precip is over the border area. So that's probably going to be our main area of focus, both from an icing perspective as well as a thunderstorm potential. 0Z, you can see this stuff moving closer kind of into the foothills, and I can attest it was certainly IMC at my place at this time. And then our icing forecast. Again, this is later into our flight, and again, it looks like that region down close to the border would be our main area of concern for icing. And turbulence. Not looking all that great. Here at 11,000 feet, this whole area down here is in that kind of moderate to close to severe range. Pretty strong.
We have a segment right there in eastern
Yes.
New Mexico. So
Yeah.
somewhere between El Paso and Albuquerque, we're going to get the ship.
Yeah, there's a good potential for that on this flight. You may have to wear a mouth guard. So again, yeah, looking at that turbulence, certainly some good areas down here to worry about. So looking at our TAFs, our departure time up here, winds are 170 and 18 gusts into 26. So about the same at our departure that we're looking at, we're looking at 15Z. So it's not changing a whole lot. Pretty, gusty southerly winds, but you're taking off on a long north-south runway, so not too bad. And then you see the vicinity of showers, rain, snow, all that stuff later that would, coming in tonight and this morning. And down in El Paso, we're landing around 21Z. So they're saying from 1900, winds 270 at 20, gusting to 30. So as that front went through, the winds indeed changed direction and intensified, which we would kind of expect to happen down here. So if you're worried about crosswinds, this is the runway configuration at El Paso. So the primary commercial runway here, you got some pretty good crosswinds. If those winds are coming out of the west at 20 to 30, now we could land probably down on this guy here and be pretty safe going into a headwind. So something you always want to check before you head into something. What is the runway configuration? What are my crosswinds, etc.
Notims to see if the runway's open.
Yes, good point. Checking notims to make sure. Yes, sir.
Now, and all this, we're seeing segments and all we're seeing here, is that based purely on meteorological input, or do PIREPs ever get?
Oh, yeah. Now, the airmets and segments are issued by a forecaster, but PIREPs are a primary input into that forecaster's decision of whether to issue an airmet or a segment. Absolutely. Okay, so our flight path tool from the Aviation Weather Center. Now, a good comment came up during the break. How many of you are aware that DUOX is going away? Okay, we're all aware. This is very good. It does change, however, a lot of the information that you've probably been gathering. So that when DUOX transitions, it goes away. Flight brief, 1-800-FLIGHT brief becomes the LIDO system, becomes the primary system for briefing for all that information. So as you make that transition, make sure you understand the differences in the products that you're acquiring that you used to get from DUOX that may be different now that you're transitioning to LIDOS, the Aviation Weather Center ads, etc. Wherever you get that information, understand it may be different looking from what you got previously. So I really like this flight path tool. It's from the Aviation Weather Center website. It allows you to put in our intended route of flight, and it puts in our altitude. So we put in 11,000 feet, and then I put in 21Z on the time slider. So I'm now looking kind of most of the way into our flight, towards the end of it, what are the conditions going to be? This happens to be relative humidity at 11,000 feet. So you notice, yeah, indeed, we're going to have some higher relative humidity as we're going through the border area, and then it gets real dry. The beauty of this tool, you can look at the profile view. So I'm now looking departure in Centennial into El Paso over here, and again, that black line is my altitude of my route of flight. Notice a lot of moisture clouds are expected along that portion of the flight as we go over the New Mexico-Colorado border region, and then it dries out as we get farther south.
Does it show wings aloft?
Yes, you can. I apparently forgot to add that on this slide, but yes, you can add winds aloft on these graphs. This is our temperature profile. So again, the 0 degrees Celsius is this kind of gray to beige line right here. So we're flying below freezing here and then right at the freezing level as we get close to El Paso. So that's going to come into play when we're looking at icing, which this is our graph of icing at 21Z, a little bit here near Pueblo, and then again a little bit near that border region. We look at the profile view, and now we're seeing, hey, if we go higher, we're probably not going to do ourselves any favors. So we're,
Can
yes?
you go back to the previous slide? Was there a there's a thunderstorm there?
No, this is just icing.
Patches
Oh,
that aren't
this is
deep?
a convective segment,
Oh,
yes, for that area out in eastern New Mexico. Yep.
So we're be far enough away from that?
Yeah, you're over here, so this convection's forecast to be right along near the border region, so you're far enough away from that here. From an icing perspective, we may not have a lot of options because we're 11,000. We probably can descend a little bit in some areas, but you do have terrain that you gotta be interested in as well. So kind of a close call there. Turbulence-wise, not looking so good. We're going through areas of moderate or greater at 11,000 for most of the duration of this flight. So you got 3 hours of bumping around in the cockpit. And our profile view starts at 10,000. So this doesn't mean there's no turbulence down here. It just means the model only starts at 10,000 feet. We're at 11. But if you were to climb, you wouldn't be doing yourself any favor as well. So we're kind of stuck from a turbulence perspective here. So, based on all this data, would you proceed with this trip? How many would take a go at it? Yeah, it's a rough day.
I think I'd poll my passengers.
Yeah. It was an interesting weather day from a flight day. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people would want to sit through this flight and try to make it down there. So let's see how things evolved. 18Z at our departure. Notice here, not much going on at Centennial, so we were okay from a precip standpoint. But we did have some stuff down here that was going on at our departure. So that was the area kind of our concern from a precipitation, thunderstorm, icing standpoint. And indeed, yeah, that's how it kind of turned out. So this is, again, reflectivity. Here's Centennial Airport. We're heading south. Yeah, not much going on. But, we did have some thunderstorms out here in Kansas. And this is what our visible satellite and lightning looked like. So again, here's that dry slot. Good for our flight. But notice some clouds and then even some thunderstorms down here east of Santa Fe.
It's all moving to the east.
Yes. Yep. So 19Z, 1 hour into our flight, we're near the border region down here at this time. So again, we're in an area where we're probably in clouds. There may be some icing, and yet some thunderstorms probably out in here. This is now picking up the Pueblo radar. And again, we're flying down through this region here. So would it have been possible to split that gap? Yeah, probably. So you got mountains, on this side where the precip was, and you got some terrain over here. So flying down the I-25 corridor, you might have avoided a lot of that precip, but you're probably still in clouds as well. And it's turbulent, and there may be some ice in it. And here's what it looked like. Again, you're in a border region, and now, see, these things are popping up here to the east of Santa Fe. So you're going to have to take a little indication, maybe fly a little closer to Albuquerque and Santa Fe at this point, as that stuff's blowing up. So 2 hours in, you're kind of east of Albuquerque, down in this region right now. So this stuff, again, as expected, is kind of moving off to the east and started intensifying, but we're well west of that region at that time. And here's the Albuquerque radar. And again, not much precip out where we're flying, but some good thunderstorms out to the east out there. And sure enough, yeah, a lot of lightning, a lot of thunderstorms out here, but we're flying over in here, so we were probably okay. One thing to note I wanted to bring up, anybody know what this is down here?
That's,
Spaceport.
What's that?
Spaceport?
Sierra Blanca.
Yeah, it's White Sands.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
so
you gotta go around.
they're reporting blowing sand, which kind of makes sense. This is if you've been out there, it's kind of a desolate, dry area, and you notice you can actually see the kind of the sand area out there. But the weather station out there is reporting blowing sand, which I thought was kind of funny. So 21Z, we're getting close to El Paso, and again, we're in pretty good shape here from a precip standpoint. Notice this stuff out here, though. You're getting close to some severe storms out there in eastern New Mexico as they headed into West Texas. Yeah, not much going on radar-wise El Paso, and big blossom of thunderstorms out there. Pretty good area, but we're in this area here, so nothing really going on there if you chose to be that bold. From a PIREP standpoint, I pulled up 21Z, and these are like the last 2 hours. And again, you're mostly getting reports of moderate. I didn't find any reports of severe turbulence. But it was probably on that threshold, moderate to getting close to severe, but nobody reported severe. Also know that there's a price to pay as a pilot if you're in a commercial aircraft and you report severe turbulence. You've got to go through some maintenance issues at that point. And our METARs into El Paso as we arrive, winds 290, 26, gusting to 36. So pretty strong winds, but again, that runway that was down on the bottom portion was runway, I think, 28 or 29. So probably headwinds, but still pretty bumpy. When you got that strong of surface winds coming in there, it would have been a very bumpy flight, I think, for the most part. All right, that's all I have. Any questions on this scenario? Any of the information we saw up there? Yeah, it would have been a tough day to fly. But I mainly wanted to show the weather pattern, which was a pretty cool and classical weather pattern, especially here for Colorado. Good day to kind of look at that kind of stuff. All right, if not, yep.
When you look at a weather pattern like that, but it's not as developed in this record, would you say flying on the left-hand side of the course is pretty much guaranteed better than on the right?
So when you're looking at a front, which is a really good question, what side of the front should I fly on? There's two different kind of weather regimes. So on the, let's say a front like this is oriented north-south. If I'm flying on the east side of that front, we're going to have strong southerly winds, and the air is going to be usually more moist on the east side of that, so the potential for convection is higher along and to the east of that front. So I'm not sure, from a flying standpoint, you may have more bumps on the east side of that because of the lift and the convection. Now, back behind the front, the air is going to be drier, so precip and icing probably aren't going to be an issue, but you can have strong westerly to northwesterly winds. So turbulence becomes probably more of an issue on that side of the front.
Yeah, I was thinking on that one, if you get south of Pueblo, go over Rosita Pass, and then go down south down to there, it may have been a,
Yeah,
you stay away from a lot of the moisture.
yep, exactly. Oh, go ahead, follow up
So if
here.
you switch that around, and now we're talking about a warm front, would it be worse?
Yes, well, no, warm front's real, to me, that's an easy case. On the south side, if a warm front is oriented east to west, The south side of that warm front is the safe side to fly, because you're not in the clouds or the lift associated on the north side of that front, because the front's going to slope to the north. So all the clouds, all of that precip thunderstorms are going to be on the north side of the warm front along the north. The south side of the warm front usually just have strong southerly winds, but no precip.
Yeah, this time of year and then in the summer, we get a lot of the dry storms coming through here. They're really fast movers, a lot of lightning. But I found if you get behind them, like you say, they're usually pretty smooth air back.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Because as they move, you're generally in that environment where you have almost descending air behind them, and it's pretty stable.
Just don't ever try that one.
No.
Mike, hard one, what do you expect locally between now and the end of May? This is hard.
You know, this year has just been a struggle for moisture. We're in a La Nina year, so it's been a pretty typical La Nina season. A lot of high winds, not a lot of precip, and all of the indications from the Climate Prediction Center, we're transitioning from La Nina into kind of neutral, but that means, from my perspective, we're probably not going to see a lot of moisture until the monsoon starts. So I would expect it to be a dry and potentially dangerous fire through about June, late June, early July. Yeah, we're kind of there already, and I don't see it getting a whole lot better, unfortunately. Anybody else? Folks, have a great day. Try to enjoy the weather out there.